Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back. I'm James Simpson. This is 𝙏𝙃𝙀𝙆. This is the Snakebite. We have some great news for you guys today. Spring sports in full swing and some news about baseball. All that and more on this episode of the Snakebite. Roll that intro.
Year. Now the final matchup in the South, Florida Southern.
And for the first time since 2020, the guys are going dancing. The men's basketball team has received a bid to play in the South region at the NCAA tournament. And after being upset by Barry in the SSC quarterfinals, it'll be a chance to redeem themselves and reset. Ahead of their Saturday matinee matchup against Clark Atlanta, I had the opportunity to sit down with head coach Mike Donnelly. I'm here with MLAX head coach Mike Donnelly. Coach, thank you for coming in. Super excited for this one. Obviously super excited for the regional tournament. And you guys had a really tough season. Making it to the regional is a big accomplishment. Obviously a team full of talent, a team full of productive players, but how did you really find what worked for this team despite all that adversity?
Yeah, it was a challenging year in a lot of different ways, but a gratifying year, no doubt. To hear our name called last night as the #3 seed in the South region was awesome. We had a watch party at my house late last night, bunch of food and stuff like that for the guys, and we went crazy when we heard our name called. But it was one of those years where the way we thought it was going to go didn't go because we were detoured with different injuries and setbacks and things like that. So it's just one of those unique years where we really had to just kind of stay together and figure it out. A lot of this stuff was just kind of figure out on the fly and just try to stay above water. That's a term we used a lot throughout the year, which we did a great job, overcoming a lot of adversity, a lot of injuries, and to set ourselves up now to put ourselves in the regional as a third seed, even though we had a setback in the quarterfinal of our conference tournament, says a lot about the resume that we built throughout the year. So I'm really proud of what we accomplished this year and really excited moving forward heading into this weekend with the NCAA tournament.
And Coach, you talked about the quarterfinal. Obviously you guys want to advance from that one, but still getting players back in that one. You were getting Alex Steen back for his second game and he missed some time. And how are you hoping to continue to see Alex return to the role we saw earlier in the year as one of the best Defensive Player of the Year in the conference and a great all-around player? How are you hoping to see him continue to grow and also continue to provide for this team as the regional starts?
Yeah, and Alex did a great job when he was out. I mean, he missed 9 games, doing a lot of conditioning, what he could do, even though he was in a boot, to try to put himself in position once when the x-rays showed he was healed to be back on the floor. And, I mean, he only had a couple practices before we threw him back out there. And you could tell, especially in the Barry game where we extended his minutes, he was a little tired. And we were a little out of the rhythm for whatever reason. But Alex's strength is right now as a young player is his motor. I mean, he has an unbelievable motor and just gets stuff done because he plays so hard. And if you're a little, you know, if you've missed 9 games and you haven't practiced for 6 weeks, your conditioning's a little off, that's gonna be a little bit of a struggle. So now with us having a lot of practice time in preparation for this upcoming weekend, I'm really excited to see him get back to the level where he was prior to his injury. Because I do think he's an X factor. Not too many teams in the country have a guy who missed 9 games who we can get back at the end of the year like we did with Alex and throw him back out on the floor and, you know, have him be a huge factor for us. So we're excited to see him get back implemented with us, back in rhythm, get his conditioning and timing back, and he'll be a big, big force for us this weekend.
Another huge thanks to Coach Mike Donnelly for coming to the studio for this interview. You can find the whole interview on our YouTube page, and previewing the region quarterfinal matchup, we'll put up the bracket here. The Mocs will take on the SIAC Conference champions, Clark Atlanta, who finished the season 25-5. Conference rival and SSC champion Nova Southeastern enters the tournament as the 1 seed, meaning all the games in this bracket will be played down in Fort Lauderdale. The only common opponent for the Mocs and Panthers in the season was Savannah State University. Both teams took care of business against them, the Mocs winning their matchup by 15, while the Panthers beat Savannah State 3 times. James, regular season behind us. It's playoff time. The guys, a lot of regular season awards, and they'll be looking to continue to do that later.
Yeah, Carl, that's right. Mocs forward Luke Anderson was named SSC Player of the Year. Anderson led the league, scoring an average of 20 points per game, as well as leading the league in total scoring with 581 points. And Alex Steen also receiving praise, being named the SSC Defensive Player of the Year. Steen registered an average of 7.1 defensive boards a game and averaged 3.4 blocks and 0.8 steals. And Carl, that is despite missing games down the final stretch. He missed essentially the entire month of February. Akola Rope also received honors, being named to the SSC All-Defensive Team. And finally, head coach Mike Donnelly getting a round of applause, named SSC Coach of the Year. So it all starts out Saturday, and we will see if the guys can get it done. And Carl, who knows, maybe the Mocs will be dancing on the ceiling by the end of this weekend.
And it's been a Cinderella story so far for the Mocs men and the Mocs women. They've had a Cinderella story of their own in the in-conference tournament. And another thing that girls want to do is just have fun. And man, the women's basketball team did have some fun in the conference tournament this past week. They started off by making history. The Mocs, coming into the tournament as the 8th seed, traveled to Fort Lauderdale to take on the number 1 seed regular season champs and number 14 in the country, Nova Southeastern Sharks. The Mocs came into this matchup not having beaten Nova since last year's tournament, as they were swept by Nova in the regular season. You could call that some foreshadowing. The Mocs replicated that we saw last year from them toppling the Sharks and becoming the first 8th seed ever in SSC Conference Tournament history to beat a 1 seed in what was by far their best game of the season. The Mocs made the game a defensive battle like their last game against Nova that closed out the year, except this time they were able to get shots to fall. In the back-and-forth first half, the Mocs went into the half up 22-19. Hear me correct, 22-19 after the first half. The defensive battle continued in the third, with the Mocs being held to just 7, but Nova started to break away with a strong run to start the third, closing out the quarter up 6. The Mocs, a team that has struggled when forced to score in bunches to make comebacks, did exactly what they've worked on all year. They scored unlike we've seen them do against SSC competition all year, dropping 26 points to come out on top 55-45 with a 10-0 run to close out the game. Coming off of the monumental wheelin' and dealin' win, the Mocs were set to take on another team that had their name all season, the Eckerd Trojans, who swept the Mocs in regular season play. Eckerd, despite lacking a full bench, is a team full of talent, with SSC Defensive Player of the Year and Player of the Year Lauren Vieira leading the way for them. Vieira is the first player to ever receive both honors and showed why against the Mocs time and time again this year. The Mocs, in the matchup against the Tritons, were faced with the tall task of stopping Vieira, something few have been able to do all year. The Mocs competed tough through the whole game, encroaching on the Eckerd lead late in the game multiple times, but were ultimately unable to come out on top against the eventual conference champions, losing 65-73. The Mocs finished the season as a top 4 team in the conference tournament, with a strong core of players returning, with only one graduating senior in Dominica Zamora. I was able to talk about this season and the future for the Mocs with head coach Megan Zekas. Let's throw to that conversation. I'm here with women's basketball head coach Megan Zekas. Coach Zekas, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and Coach, a big season this year. You guys were able to do some damage in the conference tournament, but first, you guys started off strong, had a little bit of a stumble, but then recovered at the right time and had a really good time to get hot, and you guys were able to roll a little bit at the end. What went into that bounce back and eventually getting really back into the groove?
Yeah, just getting back on the horse. Season's such a long season. It's almost, two seasons in one, where you have our non-conference, and then we have early conference in December, and then you play a Christmas tournament, and then so it's a couple of seasons within a season. So we just, trying to keep our focus in conference season between January and February. It's back-to-back, Wednesday, Saturday. So it's just telling them, hey, we can't dwell on any wins or losses. We got to keep it moving to the next game, because they're coming back-to-back. So just tell them, hey, the season's long. Just get into the tournament, and then we can make some things happen. Just make sure we get in there. Doesn't matter what seed we want. Just get in the tournament, and then that's when we can make some moves.
And Coach, in that middle part of the season, you guys were figuring out what lineups worked, what lineups didn't work, especially with the team that had a lot of young faces. We saw more minutes for Amari Jackson. We saw 𝙏𝙃𝙀 and what really went into seeing those players' roles grow, and what did you really like about them that led to that growth, and what other things did you learn about finding players that fit with each other?
Yeah, it was a couple of games, where we were just trying to find lineups that worked to win that game. Amari Jackson has grown throughout the season, becoming a defensive force, but her offensive game is there too, and developing and continue developing. We're really looking forward to her continuing to grow, hold it down. 𝙏𝙀, you mentioned 𝙏𝙀. That girl can score. I'll tell you that much. That girl can shoot the ball. And being as a freshman, she had to get used to the college game a little bit, but her growth over this year, and all the freshmen honestly have been tremendous. And it's just amazing to see players grow throughout the season. It's a long season, like I said, but I'm looking forward to continue seeing them grow. As we only graduate one, and 𝙏𝙃𝙀 𝙎𝙉𝘼𝙆𝙀. So continuing that growth, continuing that culture, that team chemistry is what we're really looking forward to.
And you talk about 𝙏𝙃𝙀. She was a big player for this team throughout the whole year. Everyone who's watched the MLAX know how much of a leader she is on and off the court for you guys. And she got all conference for the conference tournament. What did that mean to you as a coach and just to the team overall?
𝙏𝙃𝙀𝙀's a veteran. She's always our calm when the storm happens. And she's a smart point guard, good IQ, and I think she just led us that way. And 𝙏𝙃𝙀, to have her fruits of labor pay off in that all-conference tournament, having 8 rebounds against Nova, and some of those rebounds were huge for us.
Yeah.
And then able to carry that over to Eckerd. I think she had 15 against Eckerd, and not the results we won against Eckerd, but I'm glad 𝙏𝙃𝙀 was able to be recognized for her efforts in that tournament.
And now moving into spring sports news, the MLAX beach volleyball team continues to shine as they absolutely dominated the Briggs Beach Bash. They had a complete 4-game sweep this past weekend. Carl, I don't know what head coach McKenna Wilson has put in those girls' water, but the MLAX have remained undefeated as they move to 12-0 for the first time ever in program history. They were back in action over in St. Petersburg yesterday afternoon as they look to keep that streak alive, facing off against Eckerd and Weber International. Since that match started after our production time, we would like to encourage you to visit fscmox.com for full results. And the ice hockey team has skated its way to Westchester, Pennsylvania to compete in the AAU College Hockey Nationals playoffs. Your Mocs are making strides on the ice. Through pool play, the Mocs are 2-1, which was just good enough to get them into the semifinal round. Let's briefly cover those pool play games, starting with Friday's matchup with Alvernia University. That game was all Mocs. Things were even after 1, but from there on out, you could say the Mocs spun right around the Golden Wolves, right around like a record baby. The Mocs outscored Alvernia 7-1 in the final 2 periods to win 8-2. Two of the usuals for Florida Southern, known as Will Marshall and Paul Rigolini, recorded Hatties. Michael Wohl recorded a 5-assist night. The second game of pool play against Quincy College was a minor step back for the Mocs. Wohl and Marshall scored second period goals to give the Mocs a 2-1 lead after 40 minutes, but Quincy would score 4 unanswered to defeat the Mocs 5-2. So Carl, Monday's game versus Kennesaw State turned into a win-and-in situation.
And boy, was it a thriller, and the Mocs continued to thrill the fans. This rematch of the College Hockey South semifinals a few weeks ago saw the Mocs victorious. So could they do it again? Well, this game saw 5 goals in the first period, 3 for KSU and 2 for the Mocs, 1 for Bradley Peterlin and Michael Wohl each. Will Marshall would tie things up in the second, and with just 4 seconds remaining in the middle frame, Wohl netted his second of the game and third of the tourney to put the Mocs up 1. The third was a defensive battle, and despite multiple KSU opportunities, Jason Cribbs kept that door shut, allowing 0 goals in the final 40 minutes to preserve a Mocs win as they advanced to the semifinals for the first time in team history. And that's one step up beyond where they made it last season, and it could be more. But first, they had to get past the team that beat them in pool play, Quincy College, and they did, winning 3-1 in the semifinal matchup during our production time, and now they will be taking on Miami this afternoon.
Yes, they will. And Miami, Carl, that was the team that beat them in the South Region playoffs. So it'll be a big rematch. Very, very exciting for those boys on ice. Moving on to the field, the number 17 ranked men's lacrosse team had a big week on the road as they took down receiving votes Anderson and number 20 Lander. Against Anderson, freshman Maddox Walton scored a career-best 5 goals while scooping up a pair of ground balls. Caleb Cook, Bryden Robichaud, and Brendan Glasser all contributed 4 points to the offensive effort. 𝙏𝙃𝙀, who's had himself a great sophomore season, led the Mocs with 7 ground balls, went 11 for 23 at the X. The Mocs really showed that they could control a tightly contested match. The Trojans came within 3 different times in the back half, but Walton scored 4 of his 5 to keep the Mocs on top. Against Lander, the story would be Chiz's work at the X as he went 25 for 28. Matt Flamenspeck led the team with 5 goals on 7 shots, and Glasser had his first 4+ goal performance in almost exactly 365 days. I believe it was 368 days. Michael Simone made 8 saves, marking his first non-double-digit save performance of the season. Carl, this team is deep, and they're finally starting to hit their stride. They'll be tested once again against top 20 competition when they host number 16 Colorado Mesa next Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Baseball returned to action with a 2-game series this past weekend against the receiving votes Seton Hill Griffins. The first game saw the Mocs take the victory with a score of 5-2 following a whopping 15 hits. Jevin Relaford led the team with 3 hits while 5 other players had 2 hits each. Mitchell Leroy got the start for the Mocs and gave up 2 runs on 3 hits to get the win, and Casey Odell went 3 innings in relief, giving up only 1 hit to get the save. Game 2 saw the Mocs get out to an early lead, and great pitching kept this one so fresh, so clean, with a 1-0 lead all the way to the 8th inning. Logan Adams gave up a hit in the 2nd and didn't give up another until the 8th inning. That hit was damaging as it was a pinch hit home run to tie the game at 1 apiece. Seton Hill scored 2 more in the 9th to win this one 3-1, and they are back in action tonight as they take on the number 9 Wayne State University at home at Henley Field. If you can't make it out, make sure to tune into fscmocs.com/live.
The softball team has had a full spring break of action, 9 games over 9 days, starting off away at Eckerd. In the Eckerd series, the Mocs bounced back big after losing 6 straight, including the first game against the Tritons, winning the last 2 games of the series before heading back to Chris Bellotto Field for some non-conference play. They began their 6 non-conference games with a 2-game series against a very good King University team. The Mocs split that 1-1 in a series defined by pitching, with both teams combining for just 5 runs over the 2 games. Following King, the Mocs took on a struggling Southwest Minnesota State University team in another series they split 1-1. That was full of runs, with both teams reaching double-digit in one of the matchups at least. And in the final matchup of the break, the Mocs took on a floundering Ursuline College team that the Mocs decimated with an electric feel at the plate, winning 5-2 in the first game, 8-0 in the second game. And after our production time, the Mocs took on Hillsdale College. You can find the results from that doubleheader online at fscmocs.com. And tonight, they'll take on Bloomberg University. And again, like Carl said, you can watch that game live, fscmocs.com/live.
And stop us if you've heard this one before, but the women's lacrosse team is playing some very, very tough competition. And after starting spring break at home with 2 big matchups, the second portion of their spring break, they found themselves in a New York state of mind, taking on, you guessed it, more ranked teams, starting with the number 1 team in D2 women's lacrosse, Pace University. The Mocs got out quickly with both the Setters and the Mocs trading goals. After things were tied up at 4, the Setters got the upper hand and found themselves up 4 going into half. The Mocs would fight back and go on a run of their own with third-period goals from Madison Terre and 2 from Abby McFerrin. Jackie Stoller got the game within 1 with just under 12 to go in the game. However, that's as close as the Mocs would come as the top-ranked Pace University Setters come out victorious 12-16. After that, the Mocs looked to rebound and pump it up, and get back in the win column as they took on Mercy University. And they indeed did pump up the jam. The Mocs never trailed in this one, winning 18-13. Jackie Stoller scored 7 in the contest, including notching her 100th career goal as a Moc in the road trip, as well as being named the SSC Women's Lacrosse Offensive Player of the Week. Terre found the back of the net 4 times in the win, while goalkeeper Mackenzie Gahan saved 11 shots. The Mocs are home for the rest of the month with 4-game homestand, and they open up this homestand tomorrow night, the 14th, with a 7 p.m. matchup with Lee University before taking on the number 14th ranked Bentley University for Senior Day Saturday morning.
Now, the last time we saw the men's golf team in action, they had been through the desert, where there were plants and birds and golf and things, and oh yeah, they won the Battle of the Desert. After a much-deserved spring break, both the 11th men's and number 24 ranked women's golf teams were in action on Monday and yesterday. The men's team found themselves in Valdosta, Georgia at the first Federal Southeastern Collegiate Tournament, while the women were in Orlando at the Peggy Kirk Invitational. As of our recording time, the men currently sit in a tie for 5th with a team score of 2 under. Dante Graposo leads the way in a tie for 8th with a score of 3 under, while Tyler Mistretta follows closely behind, tied 11th with a 2 under par. For the women, they currently sit at 7th in the field. They are led by Margot Bonifay, who is in 3rd place at 5 over. Both teams were in action for the final round after our production time. For results, make sure you head to fscmox.com.
And both tennis teams were in action, but let's start with the women. The women's tennis teams Leah Piscini and Olivia Bryant have been individually ranked by the Intercollegiate Tennis Association, getting some much-deserved RESPECT. Bryant, who has gone 10-1 this season with her only loss being to the number 33 ranked player in the nation, was ranked 51st. The 8-3 Piscini earned herself a number 17 ranking. The women were in action yesterday as they hosted number 32 Mississippi College, but that match finished before our production time. They'll also host number 48 Indiana University of Pennsylvania this afternoon. The men's tennis team had a great week last week as they picked up a neutral site win against Georgia College and State University and a win against Thomas Jefferson University. Number 17 Chris Falkow and number 39 Mario Garros both won all of their matches and worked together perfectly to go undefeated last week in their doubles pairings. That will be a pairing to watch as the season goes on. Garros' 3-0 week extended his single streak to 9, which is the team best. That in part helped earn Garros the SSC Men's Tennis Player of the Week. The men are busy this week. Yesterday, their matchup against number 4 Mississippi College finished after our production time. They play number 2 Auburn Montgomery this afternoon, and they'll play the number 1 nationally ranked team tomorrow at 3 p.m. And that's this week's edition of the Snakebite, but still a lot of other sports happen. The track team going up to UNF, competing against some tough D1 competition. Big congrats to Dominica Zamora, all-conference team for the graduating senior. And of course, the swim team at Nationals started yesterday, continuing today, and will be going through the weekend. Make sure to share on your mocks on all social media platforms, and always make sure to check fscmox.com. This is this week's edition of the Snakebite. Hope to see you next week.